Costas Spiliadis, who built a seafood empire from scratch, still prowls its dining rooms and kitchens, worrying every detail. He left his hometown, Patras, a port city often called Greece's gateway to the West, carrying 2 suitcases, one with clothing, the other with books and records. He was 19, the son of a retired military judge, intending to study criminology at New York University. Nothing went as expected. Today, Costas Spiliadis, 72, who says he arrived in this country nervous, scared and totally intimidated, owns and operates an international dining empire, with restaurants in Montreal, New York, Athens, Las Vegas, Miami and London. An estiatorio Milos will open next week in the new Hudson Yards development in New York, while one in Los Cabos, Mexico, is planned for the summer and another in Dubai for later in the year. All his restaurants are named Milos, and they are famous for their impeccable seafood, extravagantly displayed on ice and, at prime dinner hours, extravagantly priced. But his obsession with perfection is wide-ranging and merciless, not limited to fish. It encompasses all that he sees, tastes or possesses. Sheila Kussner, a Montreal philanthropist who once brought Pierre Trudeau to the Milos there, points out that the restaurant's website opens to a vista of flawless ripe tomatoes. Mr. Spiliadis buys them seasonally from Florida, the Carolinas or New Jersey, never permits refrigeration, and stacks them in pyramids, which he said assures exemplary ripening. Then they must be sliced to his specifications. The Milos kitchens do not dabble in haute cuisine. Their focus is meticulous cuisine. Milos is a triumph of the authentic over the artistic. Mr. Spiliadis opened his first restaurant in 1979, a time when chefs began disregarding tradition, and innovations like California cuisine and molecular gastronomy emerged. His response was to ignore them all, to remain faithful to simplicity and purity. Taste, he says, does not originate in the head, but in the mouth. His Greek yogurt is not fat-free. His Mediterranean fish has never been blackened. Blackened is violence to the delicacy of the fish, he declared. A similar intensity extends to his other passions, from Greek history to his 6 grandchildren. His own history has a dramatic arc. A nearly impoverished immigrant prospers by transforming Greek dining in North America from rustic to classic, helping banish its widespread image as little more than flaming cheese and lemon-soaked lamb. Costas Spiliadis made Greek food a thing, the most hyper-copied restaurant of his ethnicity, said David McMillan, a celebrated Montreal restaurateur. Before Milos, he said, a Greek restaurant was a place with a couple of guys in paper hats standing in front of a shawarma machine. Mr. Spiliadis loves the United States, and can even describe its greatness in culinary terms. Here is true democracy in everyday life. When the Prime Minister of Greece came to Milos in Athens to eat, the newspapers wrote about it and the people there said, "This must be a great place, but it is not for me." Bill and Hillary Clinton are regulars in New York. Here the public will say, Bill Clinton is at Milos. It must be a great place. I'll go. Yet as all-American as his success story appears, the credit belongs not to this country but to Canada, where he opened the first Milos and where he is esteemed by other restaurateurs. He's the most focused, the most driven of us all, Mr. McMillan said. I'd see him at the airport getting his Dover sole, and I knew I'd never beat him at fish. And he's a lone wolf. I've been around for 26 years. I ran into him 3 years ago at an event, and he pretended to know who I was, but I'm not surprised if he didn't. Mr. Spiliadis' father came from Philia, a mountain village in the Peloponnese region of Greece. His mother was born and raised in Istanbul, her roots in the culture of Greek refugees forced to leave rural Turkey and resettle in the early 20th century. The boy grew up loving music. When he came to America, he carried with him the songs of the mountains and the refugees, traditional music that was undergoing a revival in Greece. This music made me who I am, he said. On arriving in Manhattan in 1966, he roomed in a YMCA, and cried every night. I missed my home, and was overwhelmed by the city, he said. He soon moved to a private home on 14th Street, taking a room so tiny he had to climb over the bed to get to the window. Because he was on a student visa, he wasn't allowed to work. And the money his parents were permitted to send him was severely limited by the Greek government. In his room, he cooked chicken necks, which cost at most 15 cents a pound. Another Greek guy also going to NYU was working at a hot dog place on 42nd Street, he recalled. Greek friends and I would walk from Washington Square to Times Square because the guy working there would stuff 2 or 3 hot dogs into the bun and cover them with sauerkraut so nobody would see. He added, I was totally lost. He soon left for the University of Maryland to be closer to his older brother, Stelios, who was at Johns Hopkins University. If a gypsy had come by and said that restaurants were the future for Costas, Stelios said, I would have said this was a know-nothing gypsy. Costas was always an intellectual and political person. A military junta was ruling Greece, and Costas Spiliadis took part in protests and political action, even though his student visa forbade it. He admired the academic environment of the university, where he studied sociology, but not the Maryland of that era, with its segregated buses and bathrooms. He also felt humiliated that his Greek identity was not appreciated. Everyone, including friends, called him Gus, not Costas. To him, that was no small thing. He had been named after his father's cousin, who was executed by German soldiers in a massacre of 3,000 civilians during World War II.